Hello, everyone. Lego is back with a really, really big project this time. That's been running for, as you just saw, about 3 years on and off. Most in 2023 and then 2025, a little bit of 2026 within. So it's not that the project took 3 years; it's that it took me 3 years to finish the whole thing, on and off, with a lot of pauses in between. So I'll get a lot more into what you're seeing on screen later. For now, just know that this is the combination of a dream I had where I wanted to do sheet music and sheet music for a specific song in particular. And at the time when I got this idea, I did not have neither the music understanding or the actual system in place to do this. There are two music systems in Gallifreyan that I know of. One is the Paul Redling system, made by a guy named Paul Redling, presumably, and it's very old. And it's a branch made for the Sherman architecture. So it's a branch of Sherman essentially that deals with music, and it's not very complicated. It's not very sophisticated. Couldn't really do a lot of stuff. The other system that I know of is the Flux music system, which is a lot more fancy, but still it wasn't quite what I was looking for. It didn't have all the features I needed, and it's not as easy to approach in that the Flux system was, well, it's a very different architecture, and the the style almost didn't really lend itself to what I needed, even though it was more advanced by far compared to Paul Redling. So I sat down and made my own extension, essentially, of the Paul Redling system. And in doing that, I basically looked at this type of music that I wanted to make. And when I looked at the music I wanted to make, I saw the symbols that I needed to have, and the way the notes interacted, the ways I would need to be able to interact with my music. It basically just modeled off the system based on what I anticipated to need, and that took about 3 weeks to do back in 2023. And having done that, having made the system essentially that I was going to be using to translate sheet music, I then started to tackle the project you're about to see here. What you're seeing here is the first 7 or 8 measures, I believe, of a 43 measure piece of music arranged on, I believe, a piano. Basically, didn't want to make an all-out symphony, but it was complex enough to do what I wanted it to do. So I found this arrangement on the internet for the song I wanted to do, and then I just sat down with the guide and the sheet music and Inkscape, and basically just started plopping ahead. Now, this first segment here, the first circle of music you see here, is made on the fly. No plan, no nothing. All the notes are arranged wherever I have the space. And it was not really the way I wanted to do it when you scale it up big time. So I started to see if I could do some more uniform approaches to this to get the whole thing to look a little bit more planned, a little bit more uniform. So I started making these arrangements based on, set placements, set positions of the individual nodes, and that spanned into a whole sub project of making some templates. You see a few glimpses of them throughout. Making some basic templates on various needs. So if you have X amount of space, you need X amount of nodes, you need X amount of blah, blah, blah. I will have a few templates that can sort of do meet those needs without having to make you recalculate everything all at once again. And this is the approach I took from this moment. I tried to sort of place the nodes in predetermined locations And depending on my needs, I would have to, obviously not do that. But for the most part, started to arrange the notes in more predictable placements. And my goal was, like, once you took a step back and watched the whole thing from, without scrutinizing just a single piece, it would look a lot more uniform or calculated, or like there was some sort of hidden, I don't know, a pattern or something like to be found in the music sheet, instead of the completely random stuff that I did at the first ring, which was based off of the music project guide itself, which was at the time random when I made it. So trying out this new style here, it also should make my music writing a little bit faster, because I don't have to. I can do more copy paste when it comes to the node sizes, which is probably going to be a little bit of a help. And otherwise, I mean, what I'm doing here is essentially just taking a measure of music, writing down the notes, adding the modifiers as necessary, trying to keep in mind what nodes need line modifiers in terms of flags or bars, and then beams, and then I am translating that to music basically, or trying to at least. And at the end of the day, when I get more and more of these segments done, I hope to be able to interconnect them up in ways similar to what we're used to seeing in, Clockwork Gallifreyan or Ratilonian or any other script where you have, interactive line modifiers across words. Now, this is a very long video, and I cannot sit and discuss what you're seeing on screen all the time, because what you're seeing right now is you're going to see a lot more of that. It is essentially just me making a bunch of predetermined stuff, and then I am trying to find interesting ways of making those things interact. So here you can see I took the second music circle and I sort of overlapped it a little bit with the first one in the same manner we do with the divots in certain languages like Sherman or Rook. And in that way, I made it a little bit more interesting, a little bit more compact. Not that this project inherently needs to be a lot more compact than it is, because it is very, very compact. But I wanted to see if I could fit it into one page. Now, spoiler alert, I could not. But at the time, it seemed very doable. Especially because I didn't really anticipate that much of it. Not because I couldn't do much, but because I actually expected the lyrics to accompany this text. I expected that to be very minimalistic, and I didn't expect it to take a lot of space. And because that didn't take a lot of space in my head, once the music was done, that would pretty much be it. Turns out it was pretty much, very much not it. But we'll get back to that in a later point in this video. For now, I am starting the third music circle, which I decided was to be smaller. Just one double staff around the center. And I am being very cheeky and reusing the center of each circle from the previous point, because I'm lazy and because, well, I wrote the rules for this system literally, so I decided that I could do that, and therefore I did. One interesting point to me was actually the fact that, and I'm very proud of this, once I got going on this project, I never really had to go back and make any exceptions. Like, I really thought of everything that I needed ahead of time and made that into the guide. I didn't have to redo any part of the guide. I didn't have to add any exceptions. I didn't have to go back and fix a loophole or an edge case I hadn't thought of. Like, I nailed the thing I wanted on day one. Usually, if you do a big project, that's at least what I tend to experience, is when you do a very big project, at some point you will inevitably find some edge case loophole thing you didn't think of, um, just because you can never anticipate everything really. But so far I haven't really matched anything, found anything I couldn't handle with the architecture and the modularity I put into that rewritten system back at the time when I started this. Now you saw it briefly flash on screen there, but we're now maybe 4 or 5 months later into this thing, and still going on the third music. No, wait, this is the fourth music circle. I think one, two, yes, number 4, and I'm still keeping to that formula of having the helping lines there in the background, red lines, determining where I can actually put the notes nominally to help me guide the placements a little bit more uniformly. And there we go. This is music number 5. You can see I have some special layers throughout there. If you pay attention, some double layers. That is where the lyrics are going to go later. So I'm doing the sheet music first, because that's going to take up the bulk of the space. That is the thing that takes up the most space. I need to have that in place before I can estimate how much space is going to be taken up by the lyrics. And I had, again, hoped and anticipated that this would not be that big of a deal. And at the time, that also seemed to be the right decision. But as it turns out, we'll get back to that later, but it is not, in fact, how things ended up being. But past Lego here is still plodding on with the notes. It's just much more recent past Lego instead of the 2.5 years ago past Lego, which means I also spent a decent chunk of time figuring out what the heck was going on, and how I did the template system, how I did the note manipulation, all the stuff basically. Because ask any artist how much they evolved or changed their ways or habits in 2.5 years, and they'll tell you, well, it's different, and it was. But nonetheless, I got on with it and continued the notes, continued the sheet music, just did emulated the style of previous music circles essentially, and still preparing the way for the lyrics to come on later. Now, it's of course easier when you have a big detailed guide like I do, and I know how I think, I know how I write, and I know essentially what I mean by any given thing. So I just had to reread my guide here, do some quick references when I need to reference certain things or certain features, need to remember how that works or what options I have for this or that. But otherwise, it wasn't that big of a deal coming back to it. Mostly also probably because I didn't have to reread any of the actual sheet music to get going. If you come back to a project you have been doing for 2.5 years and it's text based, you probably have to reread your own text to see where you are, what you're doing, what the next piece is going to be like, etc., etc. But here, every note that's already done is treated as absolutely final, and I don't have to reread it. I don't have to recheck that the last note I did was this or that. I just have to trust that my past self did the thing correctly, and I just need to figure out where I am and what's next. I don't have to retread any ground and make sure that the thing I did multiple years ago is still valid. So that's a relief, to be precise. And now here we are. Right, and We are almost done with this circle now, I see. We just need 1 or 2 measures left, and then we are good to go on that. So at this point, I just really wanted to get it done. It had been, as I said earlier, 2.5 years since I last touched this, and I got the motivation to finish this, and this is why I am now very happy to see that I am fiddling around with the last music circle, trying to see. I'm just counting the remaining notes and trying to figure out where to put them in a way that looks good and, you know, obeys the space that I want to have left. So that is set up now, and I'm just doing the final line work on the music circle as a whole, trying to double check at least to see that I caught everything, because it is, I mean, even with the organization, quote unquote, I'm doing here with these circles, that is still a lot of chaos going on everywhere. So it is not a guarantee that I got everything. Now for this last circle here, I just wanted to end on a bang, and that meant that I copied the actual information circle in the center and redid that at the top with the modifiers placed slightly different, so it looks like it's something new. Sue me, I'm lazy. But yeah, so that's just the center repeated again with the 4/4 time and the key signatures in the center there. And I can practically remember the anticipation I had at this point, knowing that I was almost at the end of the sheet, and I just had 1 or 2 more complicated measures left, and then 4 very basic measures with very few notes left. So I was really looking forward to that. This is pretty much the last complicated measure, I believe. 4 outer notes, 1, 2, 3. No, there's one more after this, and then I'm done with the basic notes and most of the layout that it takes up. There's still a few small things left, but overall, once I'm done with this circle, I'll be pretty much done with the bulk of the stuff, or at least that's what I thought. Because after that there was the text, the actual lyrics, and oh boy, it was more than I signed up for 2.5 years ago when I made this. The reasoning being that I thought I could do it in German. I thought for sure I was going to do either circular German, or I was going to do, if I didn't have the space for that, I was going to be doing unfurled German. That's what I thought. Turns out I could not do that, and you'll see why in a moment. But there simply physically was not space enough to actually do that. And this actually makes me pretty happy in a way, because it means that if I had done this 2.5 years ago, I would have been stuck. I could not go any further. No system that I knew of at the time of starting that project, no system that I had learned or knew of, could have pulled off what I needed. There was no system that was compact enough to do what I needed to do, at least as far as I know. So it's in a way very lucky that I did not do it at the time. Now, we are in 2025 now, and now it is time to tackle the text. And I thought, with my new understanding of the limited space I had, that unfurled Diflux IPA, the IPA module in Diflux, was actually going to be the way forward, because it is like letter per letter, being IPA blocks are a little bit more compact than just regular writing. So I could shave off a few letters here and there on the whole, and I thought that would be enough. But as I'm planning out here, just one sentence on the innermost circle where it is most tight, I could not fit everything in. I really tried, but there was 2 whole words missing, and I also discovered the fact that some of the phonetic sounds that I needed actually didn't exist in Dialog's. They were not part of the table of characters, so I couldn't even do it really true justice in that way. And so I had to go back to the drawing board and think long and hard on what I knew and what I could do to mitigate this. And the script that I found scrounging around in my basement of knowledge was Runic Gallifreyan, a script that I was sort of co-developing earlier, either this year or last year. I can't remember. Either 2024 or 2025. I think it was 2024. With the Prophecy Oak. And we made a system, or rather he made a system, and I polished it a bit, where you could triple stack certain letters. And it was a linear system, which means it's basically unfurled by default. And because it is linear system, and because of the way we made the letter placements, it could be very tightly packed, because you could place letters on the line, over the line, under the line, in any fashion you wanted. And so I made a test run with the Runic script you see here, and it did fit. And that meant I could do this all over the place. And so I did, and I spent basically the next 3 days on that in December, trying to, basically just write the whole thing out. And over the course of doing that, I met like one or two instances of niche problems we hadn't thought of, me and Profio, when we actually made the tables and tried to figure out how everything would work. But we'll get back to those small issues later on. Right now, I'm just raw shaping the whole text. It is very organic looking. It's sort of almost calligraphic in its design. And if you zoom out long enough and just squint at it a little bit, it really looks like the script, one of the writing systems from Lord of the Rings, at least in my opinion. And I really like that aesthetic. So, just another win in my book. But you'll see more of that over the next few minutes here, as I am trying to figure out where the dummy circles I left in back when I was writing the notes. Now I needed to figure out what those dummy circles represented, where each word would have to go for real this time, so I can put them appropriately relative to the notes. Now, the only real downside to using Runic Gallifreyan for something like this is twofold. One of them is there is no punctuation in the system at all. It was not meant for big writings like this, really. So no punctuation, which means I can't do apostrophes. So I can't do things like I am or we are. I can't do the contracted versions of those. So I just decided to write them out as is. So if I write the contracted version of I am, I literally just write an I and an M together. So, people will probably understand the intent if anyone were crazy enough to actually decipher this. The other downside to this is that, as you can see, if you really pay attention to the way I design the characters, they look a bit rough. They don't really look smooth. There's a lot of kinks and random small creases, and nothing really looks like it doesn't look good. So that means I'm going to go over every single swish and line and anything I do, and remove some of the kinks, remove some of the extra notes that essentially make this thing look more rough than it has to be. The exact same process I go through whenever I do Gallifreyan, basically, except this is on a much smaller, much bigger scale, but on smaller characters. So that took absolute ages to do as well. But that's a future Lego problem. Right now, I'm just writing and having a good time and being really thankful that everything actually fits. I have no idea what I would have done 2.5 years ago if I tried to make the text back then. I probably would have made some ridiculously small unfurled Sherman and then been happy with that, even though like it would have been borderline unreadable, I think, in the space available to me. So in hindsight, this is basically the best option. I really lucked out here by delaying it so long that we made a new script that fit the needs at hand right now. So that is just a happy ending, if I'm concerned. And by now we are doing, I believe, one of the last measures of text in the big circle. So I don't think we have very far left to go. It took a bit of finagling to figure out where everything had to go, because I don't remember now how I decided to split up contracted words back in the day, because some words split across different music measures, and I don't remember how I tackled that at the time. So I had to do some recounting, I had to do some recalibrations, and once again decide where each word had to go. I also had to make up my own words on one or two occasions, because the lyrics on the sheet of music did not agree with what I thought the lyrics were. And I've done this song once before already, so I have a really cemented idea of what the lyrics should be. Sue me, but I changed some of the lyrics to fit what I believed they actually were. And also there was a spelling error, so I'm not entirely confident that the lyrics on the sheet was correct in the first place. Anyway, what you're seeing me do right now is the aforementioned straightening out of all the notes, redoing certain stuff, and also my first real, the first real proofreading I did. And I'm really, really glad I did that, because oh boy, did I catch a lot of errors. It is mostly speaking, is the vowels. The table for Runic Gallifreyan is pretty complex, and there's a lot of rules and associated exceptions to those rules attached to each of the colors you see, the yellow, the blue, and the green. And I really especially liked to forget one rule, and that was the double dot for the E. So every time I had to write an E, I need a double dot. I forgot that very often. And it got to the point where later on, I'm actually going to modify the table. My quick guide to, you can see right there, I just made a little adjustment to the table, adding 2 physical dots to the E to help me remember the fact that I needed 2 E's always. So that's going to be a help for moving forward. But for now, I just need to catch everything I've already done, as well as straightening out a lot of the stuff. Now, I don't know, maybe someone can tell me, but the reason I have to do these straightenings is because the smoothing effect for this particular handwritten tool in Inkscape doesn't really seem to be doing its job. Like if I had very much smoothing on and I did these, I shouldn't have to do this all the time. So I don't know what's going on there. But if the smoothing option actually worked the way I envisioned it to work, this would easily have shaved another day off my work here. I think at least 3.5 hours have gone with just making things work better. It's a consequence I'm willing to take. It's not a big deal for smaller projects, but writing this much Runic Gallifreyan was never the intention of that system, even though it's very space efficient. But I got it done. Still am getting it done, actually. And I don't know if you caught it, but I have now made a little alteration to one of the words here, which came as a consequence of one of the loopholes we didn't quite catch back in the day when we made the tables, because there is a certain combination of words that look like 2 different combinations of words. So if you make certain characters in a certain way, it can be unclear which set of characters is actually used, and that's a big issue, even though it's very niche to encounter it. And I am going to have to do some consulting with my co-creator here to figure out how we tackle that in the future. we're going to have to make some adjustment to the guide to avoid that being an issue, and figuring out that for another time. But for now, we got that. I'm making a backup of the text. Now it is time to clear up a lot of the guide lines that I used, the dummy text, and some of the other support lines that I did. The only thing I'm missing now is making the words actually become words by splitting up the word lines into individual segments. So right now everything was technically one long word, and we can't have that in a linear non-circular system, which means I need to split them up so we have an end point and a starting point. So that's what you see me do right now. And I'm also paying attention to, in a moment, where the actual music potentially interacts with the text, because I don't want those to be, I don't want the text to tangle up with the notes. So that means I'm going to have to make some space adjustments here and there to make sure that I can have those coexist without messing each other up, basically. And now I am mitigating some of those. A few problems with some simple stuff that just needs to be moved a little bit out of the way. Should be very fine. No big deal there. And now I am doing one final check through of the actual node system. I'm not doing a music control spell check thing. I'm gonna have to trust that I got the nodes right. No way am I going to reread that, nor am I going to make anyone else read it. So now we come to the exciting part: actual decorations and the details. So I always wanted to get Ellie's tattoo somewhere in this, and I thought first I was going to have it as a background, sort of a watermark in the back, but it messed too much with the nodes. I couldn't read properly. Everything was too chaotic, and you couldn't make out the shape. So instead, I ended up doing a little bit of a smaller design at the top and a design at the bottom with just the leaf. So that worked out really well. Really happy with that. Then I took some distress, because it's a The Last of Us project. You have to do distress. I don't make the rules. And I made the distress with a mesh gradient that made it so that it would not cover too much of the actual text and the music, so it wouldn't get in the way. And being happy with that, I plopped down my little watermark at the bottom, and now we're doing some of the color work. I had a vague idea of I wanted green for reasons I'm not going to specify. But one issue I have with this, and I knew I had this issue, is that the way I did the music means that the center of the nodes are white, and they'll always be white. I couldn't make that transparent or hollow, because that would mean literally doing thousands and thousands of node operations, and I absolutely did not have the patience to that. So I instead opted to make a design that would give me color, but would still retain the whiteness of the sheet music. So this is what I'm trying to balance out now. I did the text. I wanted to see how that would look with some gold, and it was fine, I guess. It wasn't really as amazing as I thought it would be, but it gave it a little bit of character. And then I wanted to make the actual nodes green as well. So I am doing a complicated process now that took over 3 hours of rendering time. I skipped it here, but it took literally, I think, 6 hours. No, wait, 3 hours in total for both operations to make everything into a path. And then I am now color coding certain sections, trying to figure out how I can make them green using the least amount of operations possible. And I spent some time on that. And having done that to the best of my abilities, I tried first I tried a gradient green, didn't really look good. Then I instead opted to just make it a flat green, and then to compensate, I was just going to make something else more pretty. That's just how it is. Another 1.5 hour operation for the splitting of the groups, skipped that as well. Went straight to the fun stuff where we make some bleed over, some contrast. Uh, Tried a bunch of different iterations with the placement of the grittiness, the distress. Tried to alter the positions and the colors and the bleed through and all sorts of things to get the overall effect that I really wanted. So everything is readable, everything is still contrasting nicely, and I get the impression that I really wanted to this. And I'm free flying on this. I didn't have a plan other than green, but I'm really liking the way this came out. I paid a lot of attention to the fact that the notes are still readable, the text is still readable, and yeah, this really just it's really just it's been quite an adventure. Let me put it that. I did a lot here, even though it took 3 years. There's only 24 hours of actual work, yet somehow it came out in the way it should have come out. Now with the invention of Runic Gallifreyan, since everything just clicks now. So I'm sort of happy to have put it off for so long. And yeah, I'm probably going to tackle some more music in the future. But for now, I think this will do. And I am very happy to have shared this with you. And I hope you liked it. And I will see you another time. Bye.